Hey everyone, this is James Wilson with MTB Strength Training Systems at BikeJames.com. Today I wanted to address a question from a rider about what he called the Baskin Robbins argument for pedal stroke. And basically, the reason that Baskin Robbins has 31 flavors is that you need a lot of variety for different people. That what's going to be one person's favorite type of ice cream flavor isn't going to be another person's type. So you need variety. And so in this case, when you're looking at the pedal stroke, well, one pedal stroke may work well for one person, but that's not going to work well for everyone. So don't you need to account for a variety of different types of pedal strokes that can be used? And this is used, this argument was used in response to an email I'd sent out showing a video where some guys were testing whether flats or clipless pedals were going to be more efficient, and turned out that flats actually won the testing, and to everyone's surprise. And so again, it just pointed to how pulling up on the backstroke is not actually more efficient or a better way to pedal your bike. But again, the argument is like, well, maybe that's what worked for him and maybe that's what works for you, but I know what works for me, and it's pulling up on the backstroke, and so everybody's different, and so that's what I'm going to go with. And if that's going to be your argument, then I don't really have anything to say with that. All I can do is say that that's not how I'm going to go about things, right? Like for me personally, I'm going to look at the evidence. What does the evidence say? Right? You have two studies. You got the Morneau and Korf studies that both showed that pulling up on the backstroke produced less power and burned more energy. It was a less powerful, less efficient way to pedal your bike than simply letting riders do what they naturally wanted to do, or instructing them to push down hard on the downstroke. Mashing was actually shown to be more powerful and more efficient than pulling up on the backstroke or trying to spin circles. So you have two studies that point in this direction. Again, this is scientifically significant because if you have one study, that's great. But if you can repeat those results with another study, that's saying something, okay? So you have these two studies. You have a lot of anecdotal evidence that points in this direction. You have movement principles that point in this direction. Again, a lot of this stuff I've covered in the Flat Pedal Revolution Manifesto, but you have a mound of evidence that points in this direction, which is that pulling up on the backstroke or trying to spin circles with your, when you're pedaling, is a waste of time. It is a fabrication. It was not based in reality. It was a beautiful theory that the cycling industry came up with to help sell clipless pedals, but it is destroyed by some ugly facts. Again, you have scientific studies, you have EMG readings, you have all sorts of things that show that this theory about pulling up on the backstroke and spinning circles doesn't hold water when you look at the actual evidence. Now, if you're going to look at the evidence and you're still going to say, hey, Baskin Robbins, okay, I don't have anything that I can say to that. If that's how you're going to base your decisions and what you're going to do, then that's fine. But for me, I'm going to look at the evidence, I'm going to look at the science, and then I'm going to base my conclusions on that. And so, again, if you're going to ignore those things in favor of the Baskin Robbins argument, then again, that's fine. There's nothing I can do with that. But the problem is you find this in the cycling industry a lot. The cycling industry has done a really good job of convincing people that just because you throw your leg over a bike, all of a sudden everything's different. All movement principles, all these things are just different now because you're on a bike, which is not true, right? Like how you move is going to be like how you apply movement on the bike is how you apply movement off of the bike. So these things don't stop working. So you can look at how we move and then how do you apply that movement to the bike. So you find this in the skills training industry a lot, with the pedal stroke, where you have people whose only argument is, well, everyone's different. Everyone's different. And so we have to account for all sorts of different body types and things like that. And so basically none of this evidence really counts because you can always say Baskin Robbins, right? Everyone's different. Everyone needs different variety. And so that just shuts down all discussion, all continuing to discuss ideas and trying to figure out what's the best way for the vast majority of people. You're always going to have outliers. I'm not going to say that you're not going to have outliers, but if you're going to point to outliers as your only evidence, again, that's not a really good way to try to formulate stuff, especially if you're trying to give advice to other people, which again is where I find myself doing. So that's why, I try to look at the evidence and then base my conclusions on that, because I think that that's what's going to be most applicable to the vast majority of riders out there, is where the evidence is pointing, which is a good strong pedal stroke has nothing to do with pulling up on the backstroke or spinning circles. So Again, if you want to cry Baskin Robbins, great, but I'm going to go off what the evidence says. So anyways, you can learn more at bikejames.com. You can actually find the Flat Pedal Revolution Manifesto there, where you can find more science and more movement principles, more things that point to what is actually going on when we're pedaling our bike. And again, don't take my word for it, right? Look into it for yourself and draw your own conclusions. But I just urge you to try and base them on something more than the Baskin Robbins argument if you can.